Hello world, today I'm going to be teaching you guys the C programming language. So to get started, I'm going to install an IDE called Codeblocks, and this is how you'll do it. Just go on Google, type in Codeblocks. Once you're in Codeblocks, you'll want to go to downloads right here, then go to download the binary release. Afterwards, you'll just select the operating system that you're using, which will be Windows in my case. Then in terms of the file, you'll select Codeblocks 20.03 setup.exe, and you can use source forge.net. So once you click on it, it's going to count down, and when it counts down, then you'll be able to you'll be able to download the installer. Alright, assuming that Codeblocks is installed, now we're going to make a new C file. In order to file right here, click on new, empty file, and then you can click on save everything, and then you can pick your directory. I'm going to call this tutorial.c. Save. Now you have this blank canvas. So before we can write any C code, we have to do some prerequisites. We want to include stdio.h, and then afterwards we want int main, and then inside return 0. Save, and that's really it. So to print something on a screen in C, you want to use print f parentheses, then 2 double quotations, and then type in like hello world, and then at the end add a semicolon to end the line. You can then build and run, and there's hello world right there on the screen. Let's talk about variables in C. So a variable is basically a way in which you can store information that can be used for later. So in C, before you declare a variable, you have to declare the data type of it. So that would be like an integer, or a character, or a boolean, or a float, or a long, you name it. So I want to create an integer for now. Let's call it num. Then equal, and then let's just put in 10 semicolon. Then let's say we want to output it on the screen. I'm gonna get rid of this for now. What you need to do right now is input what you call a format specifier. What this does is that it tells the compiler the data type of the variable that you are using. So because it's an integer, we'll use percentage d, and then comma, and then make sure you have the semicolon always. So save that, and there we go, it gives us 10. You can also do this with a character. So we have C and there's letter, and this time for the character use single quotations. You can also use double quotations, I think, but it's usually best practice to use single quotations. And there's D right there. If you want to make a comment, it will be 2// and then you can just type in whatever, and basically what a comment is just text that is in the editor that can be used to, tell, let's say, someone that's going to read your code. You can tell them what parts of your code is about. So you can say like this is a variable, and then we can say that this outputs the variable, something like that. Let's say for instance you want to use a string. So in C there is not a built-in string data type. A string is basically like an array of characters. So because of that, let's say we have name, we'd have to create an array. So that would be using the square brackets right beside the name of the variable, and then inside of the square brackets we put in the size, which we'll let's put 4, and then equal, and then double quotes, let's type in John, semicolon, and then printf, and the format specifier is s name semicolon, and if you run, there's John right there. So with that being said, since we know how to create a string, I'll just tell you guys how to create an array. Inside the square brackets, type in the size, let's just put 10, it can be anything, and you'll use equal, and then the curly braces, semicolon, and let's put in 1 2 3 4 5. Let's do D, and then let's say for instance we want to print out the number 1 in the array. We would have nums, then square brackets, and then we will identify it by the index, which will be 0, since the index starts from 0, so it'll be 0, so this will be index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you run, it prints. Alright, let's learn how you do if-else statements in C. So that would be if, just like that, and then num1 is more than num2. So what an if statement does is that it gives a certain condition and it just checks if it's true or not, and if it's true then you run a block of code, and if it's not true then you can use like an else statement and run a block of code. And then there's also else if statements. So if num1 is equal to num2, I mean more than num2, you just print num1 is greater than num2, just like that. And then let's put in else num2 is greater than num1. Alright, run, and num1 is greater than num2, which is true because num1 is 10, num1 is 9. So let's flip them then. If you run, num2 is greater than num1. But what if they're equal though? So if you run that, it just says num2 is greater than num1 because, well, this statement isn't true, so it's just going to print this. But we don't want it to do that. So what we can do is put an else if statement, just like that. In the else if statement, we can just say that if else if num1 is equal to num2, we'll just print. Or we can just not keep it simple. They are both equal. Semicolon, run. They are both equal, and there you go. That's how you do it. Alright, how do you get user input in C? It's very simple. Scan f parentheses, and then you need a variable, so we use num, and then we're going to use scanf, and just like how we print, we use the format specifier, and then use num semicolon, and we can also print the input out right here, just like that. And also for scanf, just remember you have to use what you call a memory address, so you and right before the variable name, because you need to store it in memory. So each time you want to input something, just remember to add the and sign. Let's run. Enter a number. Let's enter 10. Your number is 10. So in C you also have switches, and it's like if statements, except that it runs different cases. So for instance, let's say we have a number, and actually let's put this up here for the purpose of this example. Alright, let's say we have a number and we want to check if the number is a certain integer, a certain value, then we want it to run a specific block of code. So for instance, if the number is 0, then we'll print this is, say, let's do num. So I'll just print out this is 0, and also I have to break, because it's kind of like a loop where it goes through each case to see if it's correct. So if this case happens, then just break the loop. Alright, so if we run it now, if we enter 2, it's going to say this is 2. If we enter 0, this is 0. If we enter 3, this is 3. What if we enter 5 or 4? Does nothing. So what you can do for that is that you can add what they call a default, and what the default does is that if none of the cases are true, then run this block of code, print, and I think it should break it. So if you run, let's say you type in 90, your number is unavailable. On that note, let me tell you about loops. Let's start with for loop. Loop is very simple. It allows you to do something repetitively as long as a condition is met. And if the condition is not met, then end the loop. So let's say I want to print John's name 5 times. Instead of just copying and pasting it 5 times, getting his name like that, instead of doing that, we want to be lazy. So it's for, then parentheses, then you need a variable to initialize it, meaning to start the loop. So I equal 0, and we need a condition that needs to be met, and that'll be if I is less than 5, then I plus plus, because if we don't add this, then it's just gonna crash the program because it's just gonna run forever. So we want to make sure that it doesn't run forever, and it stops at some point, and it will stop if I is not less than 5. Parentheses, print John, and oh wait, let's do \n, so that way it creates a new line, and if we run it, it creates John, and there we go. That's a smart way to do something repetitively. I'm also going to do this for an array, and the way how this works is that we're going to do the format specifier d because it's an integer, or no, an array of integers. Then I'm going to say num, and because we want to get the specific index, we're going to use I. Why do we use I? Because this will represent the index of an element in that array, and thus when the loop is initializing, it's going to start from 0 since I is equal to 0, so it starts from the first element. Then when it's done, it goes to the next one, the next one, next one, next one, and it should stop when I is equal to 5. If we run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can also have while loops, which are like for loops but only run if a condition is met. That's all we need. So this while loop states that while I is less than 5, it'll run the program. So because of that, we'll have to add I++ semicolon, and what this will do is that it's going to print the index, it's going to print the element in the array, then increment by 1, and you have to add the increment, otherwise again the loop won't stop. So if you run, it does the same thing. You also have do while loops, and these loops, what they do is that they run this block of code once, even if it's not true, but they won't run this block of code once, and if the condition is met, then it will just finish the loop. Let's say I less than 5, like that. So what this will do is that it will run this once, and if the condition is still met, then it will just finish the loop. So if you run, it does the same thing. But let's say I is equal to 6, which means that this while loop wouldn't run, because it says that in order for it to run, I needs to be less than 5, which it's not, it's more than. But because of the do while loop, if you run it, it still runs a block of code. As you can see, it runs 0. Here's a better example using a string. It prints John, even though I is not less than 5, still prints it. Let's say you want to add a function in C. A function is basically a block of code that can be reused multiple times. What you need to do is that outside of this int function, you create a function call this greeting, and then 2 parentheses, curly braces, and then want the function to just print out hello world. And the way how you would do this is just type in greeting, parentheses, semicolon, and if you run it, it prints out hello world, and it can be used multiple times. There we go. So the main reason why this function has void beside it is because it doesn't return anything. If it did return something, then we would replace the void with the specific data type that it wants to return. So let's say I want to return a number instead, and I want to return 1. We'll save that and we'll run. Well, it won't run, but you get it. Alright, that's basically it. That's a beginner's crash course to C. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed.